What is up, Schwing Dynasty? I've reveled in my time on the Ain't Nothing But a Schwing Thing videos with JD, Daryl, and Sean. Love doing that, but it's time for where my heart is right now, which is some hot and sweaty commish action with you three-nutted, four-hearted, chub schwinging motherfuckers on the commish talks here. So I'm just happy to be back in front of you guys, doing a little more improv here, without feeling the need to be as necessarily prepared as when there's other people on with me. So just getting to kind of, a little freestyle with you guys and just talk about some things that I've put together. Now, this is not the league intro video. This is not it. Last year I did the new season video with the NFL films in the background and the music going and the motivational speech. And this year it's going to be bigger, better. Costumed masquerade, or got some clowns and some midgets lined up and some crazy shit. And if that doesn't come through, then definitely more titties for sure. So in fact, more titties might need to be one of our league mottos. I think it's the Schwing Dynasty, more titties, bring your own titties. Well, maybe that's the wrong way to put it. Anyways, today what I've got for you guys, I've done some projections, okay? I've got strength of schedules based on last year's records, so you're probably not going to love some of the results of the new schedule, that now that I've calculated the strength of schedule. And then I went through and I made my projections for final standings of the regular season, not the playoffs, which is a whole other beast. I'll do that when the playoffs are starting, but the final standings of the regular season here. So this is just sort of back to some commish talks with you guys, commish and defending champion. That's just how there's exactly one champion in this league right now. How do I put this? I invited you to my beach house. I set a nice fine place at my table for you. I poured you some Cheerios. I dunked my balls in those Cheerios and then handed you a spoon. That's what happened last year. You're welcome. You enjoyed it. I know you did. You ate every bite and you asked for more balls. So you shall get them this year. In the projections, it becomes pretty obvious who should win this league again. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I have two ways that I did my projections. One of which was research-based, looking at the strength of schedule, looking at position groups, how I project them to play out, assigning different points to different position groups, and then figuring out who truly has the strongest overall team. So let's get into strength of schedule first, because this is a bit of a situation. Now, what I did was basically each of us plays 13 games this year. Not basically, we do. There's no basically or advanced of this. We play 13 games this year. So we play against 13 opponents, each of whom played 13 games last year and got a record of 13 games. So that means that the guys that we played, everyone we play this year, including some doubles, played a total of 169 games last year. Okay, so if you played Phil twice this year, he added 4 wins to your strength of schedule because he had 2 wins. And so if you play him twice, that's 4 wins on your strength of schedule. If you play Steve twice, he brings 22 games. So if you play Steve twice, it will show up in the strength of schedule that you have significantly harder road than if you play Phil twice. So now, that's based on last year. We don't know if Phil will do better. We don't know if Steve will do worse. Well, I do because I made the projections. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to bring it to you today. And I'm going to let you know what it is. But first, we're going to look at strength of schedule based on last year, And I promise you that this is, okay, this just played out the way it played out. Here's how I picked the schedule for this year. Very annoying process to do this. First, I set weeks 7 and 13 as rivalry weeks. So those two are filled. Bert and I play in those 2 weeks. Adam and Phil play in those 2 weeks, and so on. Now we've talked about different rivalries being present in the future. Great, I'm all for it. My hope is that you play everyone once, and I think I did that because that actually gets kind of difficult to do. And my hope is that you never play anyone more than twice. So I had to go through this process where for weeks 1 through 6, 7 was figured out. And then I think it was 1 through 6, and then 7, 8, 9, I tried to have no repeats. Because basically we play all 9 other teams. And then for weeks 10, 11, 12, 13, 10, 11, 12, because 13 is rivalry week, then I did a new drawing to try to pick that. Now the problem is it just doesn't work itself out. I think Sean and Phil play each other twice before week 6. And then Mark and Steve have this weird thing in week 11 and 12 where they play each other back to back. But, the Seahawks and the 49ers did that 2 years ago, or maybe it was last year, I can't remember, where they played back to back at the end of the season. So it happens. And maybe that will actually breed a little more rivalry between Steve and Mark at the end of the season if they're both competing, which I do have them both projected to compete. So how does it play out? So once I did this drawing and I figured it all out, it gets really complicated where by week 6, I'm getting repeats, and then it comes down to, okay, I've only got 4 teams left, and it doesn't work itself out where it's like, okay, I have Bert and Steve and Mark and Sean, and Bert and Mark have already played each other. Steve and Sean can't play each other because they have rivalry week the next week, and they play each other in the week 13 as well. So I had to start trading with week 2. So it a very annoying process, but I got it done. And then today I went through and added up all the wins of all the teams you played last year. And so these are the results. This is our strength of schedule for this year. If all of that was confusing, you're retarded. So I'm sorry. I'm not going back through it again. And if that offends you, then you're double retarded. And I used to take care of people with adults with disabilities, and I would never call them retarded. They were adults with disabilities. You, if you can't understand how a strength of schedule works, are retarded. And I won't apologize for that, because that's, to me, it's a very different thing. It's you just being something different. So it shouldn't be shocking that the hardest strength of schedule goes to Phil. And the reason that shouldn't be shocking is because Phil can't play himself, and his team was terrible last year. I love you, Phil, but your team was awful, and I know you've made some improvements. I don't know how much it will help. Let me look at my projections. I have you improving this year. So Phil has the hardest strength of schedule because he can't play himself. Now, he does get to play Adam twice in the rivalry games, but so that accounts for four total wins. But Phil plays some tough teams more than once. Okay, so he ends up with a opponent record of 91 wins to 78 losses for all of his opponents. For all of his opponents this year, how they performed last year again. So that's the hardest, and it's almost by far the hardest. It's 3 games worse than the next group. The next group is a tie between Bert and Daryl. Now, Bert has to play me twice in rivalry week, and so I bring 20 wins to his schedule, to his strength of schedule. Daryl, I think he ends up with Lucas and Steve twice, something along those lines. And Lucas brought 9 wins each game, so 18 for those 2 games. So Daryl and Bert are at an 88 and 81 overall record for their opponents last year. So they're tied for number 2. Then it's a group with Adam, Mark, and Steve come next at 86 and 83. And then Sean on his own at 8. His opponents are 84 and 85. Then Lucas, his opponents are 82 and 87. So Lucas has the third easiest schedule. Then JD with the second easiest schedule at 81-88. And me, I have the easiest schedule at 78-91 for my teams. Now, my rivalry is with Bert. He got 6 wins. There's 4 people with 6 wins. We had a pretty solid middle group of the league. Mark had 7 wins, and then JD, Bert, Daryl, Sean all had 6 wins. So, I'm not sure how I ended up with. I have to look back through it. I know I played Phil twice. I think I only played Adam once. I'm not totally sure about that, but again, totally random. Did the schedule yesterday, and this is what it turns out. So I'm lucky in that regard. Oh well, deal with it. Okay. So we have our strength of schedule. Phil with the hardest, then a group of Bert and Daryl with the second hardest schedule compared to last year's results, and then Adam, Mark, and Steve in another group. Then Sean, then Lucas, then JD, and then me with the easiest strength of schedule based on last year. But, for instance, I have projected in here, in both of my rankings, that Bert will be one of the top teams in our league. So, in fact, he's either second or third in our league in my 2 ranking systems. So, that's based on last year. I feel like when I looked at the schedule, I was like, man, I felt like I had set up a hard schedule for myself. But it turns out that compared to last year, I did not, and that was not intentional. But I get it anyways, because I'm the commissioner, and that's how I set things up. And it was totally random. And Mark will probably complain about that, and he should promptly eat a dick, because I don't care. So, now, on to the projections and how I did them. So what I did was I took QBs, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, and I ranked the groups, and I assigned points to the groups. For QBs, because we only start 1, and you can only start 1, there is no flex position for QBs, I assigned them on a scale of 1 point. So the top team gets 10 points, because there's 10 of us. The worst team gets 1 point. Okay, so that's how I did QBs. If you were the best team, you got 10. If you were the worst team, you got 1 point. Running backs and wide receivers, I did in a group of 2 points. So the best running back and wide receiver group got 20 points, and the worst got 2 points. And I did that so that it was more valuable because more of them play. So if you've got 4 good running backs, it's more valuable than having the best quarterback. I hope, and that again should be simple for everyone to understand. I thought about making wide receivers even more since we start 3 of them. I decided not to because there are more good wide receivers in the league. So the results were closer, is what I found. When I looked at the wide receiver groups, it was harder to differentiate them, and so I didn't feel like there was as much of a spread. So I didn't think there should be as much of a jump in point totals. Tight ends. I assigned extra points to the big 3, Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews. And then I went by usually the number 1 guy, looking at potential depth. Okay, so, and that was, so basically the top tight end group got 13 points. The second tight end group got 12. That's not true. The top tight end group got 14 points. The second got 13. The third got 12, and then the fourth dropped down to 7 points because I wanted to award extra points to the big 3 tight ends, Kittle, Kelsey, and Mark Andrews, because they just have such a difference over their counterparts in the league. So that's what I did, and I assigned all those points, and then I came up with the best overall rosters. I left defenses out because they're just too hard to project. The Patriots were great last year, but they lost so much coming into, when it's a unit base, that's harder for me to score than looking at, like, Christian McCaffrey is really good, and so he will bolster an otherwise weaker running back room, in my opinion, in Lucas's team, because Christian McCaffrey's so good. So he moves him up the list on his own, basically. So that's okay. So I went through this. QBs, let's jump into this because I'm taking too long here. When I looked at QBs, it's all about the number 1 guy for my first, my primary look was at the number one guy on your team. Depth came into it, but right away, Daryl and JD were the only two I really considered for the top QB room because of Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I liked, there's always room for movement here. Russell Wilson, if he's allowed to play free, then he could easily be in this group. But he's just too restrained by the system. But still, he's so good that Mark was up there. But so basically, the number, I'm not going to go through all of these because I already did that earlier in the offseason. We already had a video like this. But basically, I gave the nod to Daryl, Patrick Mahomes in that offense, slightly over JD. So Daryl got 10 points for QBs. JD got 9. I'm not going to go through the whole rest of the list. Lucas, I gave the number 10 spot to, so he got 1 point for that. I believe in Kirk Cousins. I think he's a good quarterback. I think Baker Mayfield could have a much better year. But if you're looking at the style that those teams are running, run heavy, and the lack of reliability, the lack of belief for me that they are going to be top tier fantasy guys, not that they can't, just that I don't believe, and that the systems will allow them to. I gave Lucas the 10th spot, so he got 1 point. I'm not going to go through the rest. Just not enough time to go through everyone, but the rest of us fit in there in the middle somewhere. Okay. Then I went to running backs, and I really looked at. I was especially looking at top 3 guys. I was thinking, okay, 2 starters and the flex, but really, that's not a good enough picture because depth is much more important at the running back spot. So I gave. This was hard for me to decide at the top, and it was particularly difficult. I said this earlier in the year. I love my starting running backs. I love having Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs. I really still like Devin Singletary a lot. So when I looked at top 3s, other than that, I really like what Sean has in Nick Chubb, Mark Ingram, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I almost made Sean number 1 in this group. If Jonathan Taylor is what he could be, then Sean's number 1 in the running backs, I think. But I have Marlon Mack, and I think that they're going to split a lot more. And so to me, I would rather have Saquon than Nick Chubb. I'd rather have Josh Jacobs than Mark Ingram, but I would rather have Clyde Edwards over Singletary. So I took 2 of them, 2 of those competitions, and I won them. So that's how I looked at it. And you could flip that around. You could say, well, whatever. It doesn't matter. So I put myself over Sean. But Sean was number 2 on that list. So he's made some big improvements in his running back room. Bert came in number 3. I really like Bert's group. This is another one that very easily could be number 1. Dalvin Cook. It's like, yeah, again, I'd rather have Saquon Barkley than Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook could easily have the bigger year, but they both have had injuries, and I just think Dalvin's a little more susceptible. But I really like Miles Sanders this year. Him and Josh Jacobs are very close for me, and I really like Raheem Mostert and Singletary. He has a kind of a bigger drop. J.K. Dobbins could put Bert into the number 1 spot depending on the role, and he could certainly jump over Sean if J.K. Takes over for Mark Ingram. So again, I'm not going to get into. I'm starting to get into all of it because I love this stuff. But basically, I have me, Sean, and Phil or Bert at the top 3 spots, and at the bottom of the list. Sorry, Daryl. It's not a lack of talent because Aaron Jones was amazing last year. David Montgomery will have every opportunity. And Matt Breida and Jordan Howard both, yeah, that's one of my problems that you got, I think, your next best player. And you do have David Johnson. Maybe I didn't give you enough credit there. I probably should have looked at David Johnson a little harder there. But I think so. Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, and David Johnson, they did come in last place for me, just over JD, who it's really Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon, and fuck, that's it. I mean, shit, Daryl, you're not allowed. I should have JD there. I feel like that should be a switch now, but whatever. I put it there. It's close enough. So sorry, guys, I've got you at the bottom. So that's how the running back shook out. Wide receivers was really hard because we have a lot of good wide receiver units in our league. I have a lot of really good wide receivers, and a lot of them finished in the top 15 last year. Godwin, Keenan Allen, DJ Chark, Allen Robinson, Devontae Parker, and I have tons of belief in Hollywood Brown this year. So I felt I have the strongest wide receiver unit too. And I went back and forth on this one. Next up, I have Daryl's wide receiver unit because his starters, Tyreek, Stephon Diggs, and Robert Woods are so good. I hope Diggs is good because I love Josh Allen. I like what the Bills are doing. I want to see that team be good. His depth is just not what mine is. And Mark at third place, he got 16 points for his wide receiver group. And really, he probably should almost be in. I think Mark it was very hard for me to choose. Mark could have easily been above me. Michael Thomas, can't guard Mike. He's the best wide receiver in football right now. And he's got, the one thing I don't like is that 2 of his 4 best receivers are both Seahawks on a team that has not proven that throwing the ball consistently is their game plan. And I like both of them. I like DK Metcalf. I like Tyler Lockett. I think they're both going to have good years. And I do think Brandon Cooks will have a much better year. So I love Mark's top 4. The top 3, really, you guys, it's pretty interchangeable. The bottom of the wide receiver group, I have Adam, and I don't think this was that close because I love his start. His number 1 is Kenny Golladay. I love Kenny Golladay. But then he goes, it's Christian Kirk, Sammy Watkins, Larry Fitzgerald. The hope is the young guys, CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk. But they're young, and wide receivers just don't have that impact right away like running backs can. And so Adam's at the bottom of this list, followed by, again, I'm sorry, JD. I'm sorry. You're number 2. You're in the wrong direction on 2 of these lists, and that's AJ Green, Julian Edelman, Adam Thielen. Good, but old and uncertain. Tons of uncertainty with everything going on their teams. So how will Thielen play without Diggs there with him? Will AJ Green be healthy? Edelman with a different quarterback. Cam Newton, he throws to the slot. He's proven that in the past. Not the same way Brady does, though. And then there's just not a lot after that. This was a hard one. I want to give a shout out to Sean with Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, and OBJ. I think that's awesome. And McLaurin, I think Sean came in as number 3 or 4, and that could easily be a top 2 group as well. So Sean made some big ups in this league. Yeah. And then last is the tight end group. I went with ranking the tight end group. Like I said, I automatically looked at the big 3, put them at the top because we start 1 tight end. If you're starting a tight end in the flex, it automatically makes me nervous about your team because that means you don't have enough wide receivers and running backs who score more points consistently to put into your flex position. So number 1 I gave to Bert because it's not that Steve has Kelsey and he got number 2 because I think Kelsey still has a better year than George Kittle, but Bert backs him up with Evan Ingram, which is really good. He can play that guy most weeks. And then Steve has some good backups too, Austin Hooper and Hayden Hurst, but both in new situations. So we'll see. It's not more unknown than Ingram. But so yeah, Bert gets the nod for the best tight end room and got 14 points for that. Steve got 13. And then Sean with Mark Andrews. Then he's got unprovens or Gesicki. He's athletic and good. And Sternberger, unproven. So Sean got the 3rd spot. And then the worst tight end room was Adam. Was Adam with Irv Smith. He could be awesome. He looked pretty good as a rookie, which is somewhat hard to do as a rookie tight end. Jack Doyle and Cole Commish. And the second worst was, fuck, is this real? JD. Oh my God. Hunter Henry could totally blow this out of the water. He just hasn't. He has not done it yet. I refuse to believe it till I see it because, that whole George Bush W, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, well, you don't get fooled again. So that's, I can't believe Hunter Henry until he does it. But if Hunter Henry's what he could be, then JD quickly shoots up this list. But again, just like someone's quarterbacks or running backs or someone that I said, prove it to me, prove it first. Then I'll give you some more credit there. And the second worst tight end group the third worst tight end group went to Phil with TJ Hawkinson. Again, it's a prove it situation. Eric Ebron. I don't know what to do with Pittsburgh's tight ends at this point. And Greg Olsen could be awesome. So that could be a much better group, but third worst, not the worst. So what does that mean? Well, I put the points in, and I'm crushing all of you. I really do believe my running backs and my wide receivers, if I put myself at 1 for both, I could be 2 at both. I could be as low as 3 at both, and I would still have a share of the league title, I believe, with someone who has made their way from the depths of the stinking, festering toilet bowl. Sean comes in with the second most points on my rankings. So these rankings would project me to be the top team in the league, Sean to be the second best team in the league. Now again, this is how I see them working out. This is not super analytical, but that's amazing. That's good because I wouldn't put Sean down as low as he finished last year. His depth is certainly better, and that's what Sean ran into, some injuries. This is a guy whose team scored 120 points in the final couple weeks of the season, which is embarrassing. So we've got Sean at my second overall. Bert comes in at number 3, and this is something I've looked at all season. If Bert can figure out his flex position and it's not a tight end sitting there, I think the one thing about Bert is depth scares me, other than at tight end for him, because after DeAndre Hopkins, Cooper Kupp, his wide receivers are a bit of an unknown. So he's got Steve Sims Jr., could be good, but there's a lot of guys after that he certainly is not guaranteed. And I think Bert came in at on wide receivers, Bert came in at the 4th lowest. And DeAndre Hopkins is the only reason he wasn't even lower than that. Running backs, though, Bert was high. Quarterbacks, I like his quarterbacks a lot, but they are not the most proven commodities. Kyler Murray could be the number 1 quarterback in football this year if the running game and the passing game is coming together. I'm not projecting that, but that could happen. So Bert has a very strong team, but the depth is a worry for me. The depth is a worry for me, not at running back necessarily, but at wide receiver, which there's a lot of wide receivers in our league. So then after that, it's Steve. So Steve had the best regular season last year, but I have him dropping to 4th right now, followed by Mark at 5th, and then Daryl rounding out the playoffs at the 6th spot. Congratulations, Daryl. I have you in the playoffs. After that, these projections, based on points, have Phil, at number 7, Lucas at number 8, Adam at number 9, and JD at the very last spot at number 10. Now, Lucas was our 3rd best team last year in the regular season. So I did too. I when I looked at this and I graded out his positions, I realized a couple things happening. Yes, I had his running back room as a whole a little bit lower than I would assume for a guy as Christian McCaffrey. So I looked at that and at the strength of schedule, and I made my picks. So I have my overall based on how I graded the units. Then I have what I believe are my picks, my heart picks, okay? And those are a little bit different. My heart picks, where it's like I look at strength of schedule and I look at, okay, Lucas has a Christian McCaffrey who can win a week almost on his own sometimes. And so my heart picks are a little different. So let's go over the overall from the points I gave. Me, Sean, Bert, Steve, Mark, Daryl, Phil, Lucas, Adam, JD. Okay? That's from the points when I assigned them. Again, I wasn't messing with the points throughout the system. It's just what happened. Now I went through and I said, okay, now what do I truly believe will actually happen? And Lucas gets bumped way up higher because Christian McCaffrey has that ability. So in my picks, here is my final pick. So I have my points based, my system picks. Now I have my heart picks. Me again, first. And I don't even care that I wasn't the top point scorer last year. My team, I also had to deal without Saquon for a long, not being himself for a long time. Josh Jacobs out for a while. Injuries hit me, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. I lost Chris Godwin. So not making excuses. Yes, I am. But I feel like my team was better than my points last year, and that's why I won the championship. So I got myself for number one. And I promise this won't be every year, but I do believe I have a very, very good team. Bert at number two. Okay, I've believed this all year, all off season, that Bert is the number one challenger to the crown this year in our dynasty. I have Lucas jumping all the way from 8th in my points based to 3rd in my heart picks, because his strength of schedule is not that bad. It's actually, I think he's the 3rd easiest. Plus, I just can't go against a team that has Christian McCaffrey, has Mike Evans and Calvin Ridley. I don't like his quarterbacks, and I don't like his tight ends, and so it is a risk. But I think his running backs and his wide receivers are good enough. So, anyways, there's that. Okay, and then Lucas, then Sean, who I do think is rapidly improving, but he's still got rookies. It's hard for me to know. I think Clyde is, I think old CEH is as safe as you can get for a rookie running back, but we'll see how the rest shakes out. Then Mark. So me, Bert, Lucas, Sean, Steve, and Mark rounding out the playoffs. Daryl right after that. Sorry, man. Now in my picks, you're not in the playoffs anymore. JD at the 8th spot. Phil and Adam. And I know Adam and Phil, you've improved, but I think Adam's depth is still, especially a wide receiver, got to get better at wide receiver. He's a Drew Brees injury at quarterback, which pushed him up the quarterback rankings a little bit, but Adam is a Drew Brees injury at quarterback away from making a decision between Teddy Bridgewater, Marcus Mariota, Dwayne Haskins, and Drew Lock. So Phil and Adam staying at the bottom of the league. That means more high rookie draft picks and more chance to improve. And I do think they are better. I think their teams are better, and that showed in my in the points based. But when I'm going with the heart picks, I think that's still how it runs out. So me, Bert, Lucas, Sean, Steve, Mark, Daryl, JD, Phil, and Adam for the win. Now, we're going to remember that. I'm going to keep this and see how close I was at the end of the season. Part 2 of this video, I know they're 34 minutes in. I'm aware of that. I want to keep talking to you guys, though. I'm really bored, and I miss humans, and I miss touch. I miss touching your hair and smelling it, things like that Biden does, Joe Biden. I miss that kind of stuff, and so I want to sit here and digitally mind meld you guys for a little bit longer. So I'm going to talk about something else that has come up as something that I think I was joking with Bird about, which is how we value players, how we value our own players. And I got to thinking why it is that people are we so value our own players, our own picks, our own yada yada, where no one else. Sometimes it's hard to make a trade. So some things that I want to throw out there. 1996. I was 13 years old, and I was in the bathroom with one of the J.C. Penney catalogs. I'm just fucking with you. That's not what this is about. 1996. I was 13 years old. I was probably in a bathroom with a J.C. Penney catalog, although by then I might have moved on to better stuff. But Charlotte, this is from the NBA. Charlotte traded the 13th pick of the NBA draft to the Los Angeles Lakers for Vlade Divac. That pick ended up becoming Kobe Bryant. Two franchises that went in completely different directions from there on out, obviously. LA had been obviously good early 90s. And they were about to become unstoppable for a few years with Shaq and Kobe teamed up down there. So that's one of those situations where giving something up might have seemed good at that point, but now everyone looks back at Charlotte and says, wow, okay, that's you definitely should not have made that move. That's not something you should have done. This one hurts. June 19th, 1984. With the second overall pick in the NBA draft, the Portland Trailblazers select Sam Bowie, leaving the number 3 pick for the Chicago Bulls to take Michael Jordan. Now, the Blazers had all sorts of reasons. So we already had Clyde Drexler. We already had a shooting guard. We wanted the big man. No one will ever remember that with the 45th pick in that draft, they traded some junk piece to the Lakers and got Jerome Kersey and totally fucking redeemed themselves. But no one remembers that. All they remember, and they obviously did not totally redeem themselves with that, but no one remembers that. They just remember the Trailblazers taking the one need, probably like one need, probably 6 total vertebrae, half of a spleen, and at least 2/3 of a liver. That is Sam Bowie. The guy was not put together like a human being. He fell apart. And Michael Jordan won, 6 rings or whatever the fuck it was. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3. On December 26th in 1919, the Boston Red Sox sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees for $100,000 and this is probably something you didn't know, and a loan for $300,000 so that Boston could produce the musical No No Nanette. And that is a real thing. They got $100,000 for the Babe and a $300,000 loan to produce, so that they could produce a musical called No No Nanette. That's what they traded the Babe for. Now, everyone remembers these things. Everyone does. Nobody really remembers that the Miami Marlins once turned down Justin Verlander for, what was his name? Oh my God. The fact that I can't remember his name. Dontrelle Willis. The Miami Marlins turned down a trade offer for some other player and Justin Verlander, and they turned it down to keep Dontrelle Willis. They overvalued their own player who was out of the league, out of the majors, and they undervalued Justin Verlander because no one remembers that happening. Not very many people know about trades that didn't go through. People don't remember when someone misses, when someone doesn't accept a bad trade, okay, or a good trade, I should they should have accepted. We all remember the trades that happened that were a total fucking disaster. And it makes, I feel like there's a group thought, a group think that says, insulate yourself. If you lose with your team, at least you didn't lose by giving your best player to someone else. Whether or not they actually are your best player, you don't want to let go of that. And it makes all of us expect too much in trades. So there's not really a major point here. I'm not saying go out and trade your best, trade your exciting young prospects. But I was just wondering why trades can be hard sometimes to get across, can get finished. I think a lot of people would rather protect our investment than send it away and see someone else profit from it. So we will hold on to things too long. That's just something I was thinking about. And I think these examples, the fact that we hear about this crap so much is a big part of why. It's a good warning. It's a good warning. But I don't think people hear as much about trades that you should have made and you didn't. Like the Miami Marlins. I don't think, everyone knows that now I think they're the Florida Marlins or whatever, but everyone knows they're terrible. People don't realize that there's steps along the way that they could have taken to be better. And they thought, we don't want to be the ones who give Dontrell Willis away. I hope that I'm getting that guy's name right. We don't want that. We don't want to be the team that gave away the superstar. And they missed out on Justin Verlander. So, yeah, just some parting thoughts from the commish. You're welcome for all of this. Don't hate me because my path to success is easier this year. I have an easy strength of schedule apparently, but again, I think it's going to be very different this year than last year. So, if you guys watched this, if you made it through this video, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. I do this for you guys as well as for myself. So to bring our swing community together. So keep swinging those chode size swing dicks you guys got, and have a happy fucking whatever day it is for you. All right, peace out.